In this topic, we'll turn AI regulations into practical controls, mapping obligations to risks, owners, evidence, and assurance activities. The aim is to move beyond awareness and build compliance designs that enterprises can implement, test, and reuse. So far, we've built the foundation: enterprise AI change, governance, risk, security, and regulation. Now we'll apply that foundation through compliance mappings, control frameworks, and readiness checklists, so AI portfolios can move from general awareness to defensible execution. AI compliance mapping turns broad regulatory expectations into actions the organization can actually run. A requirement like transparency becomes model documentation, user notices, decision logs, and review checkpoints. Human oversight becomes approval workflows, escalation paths, and named owners. The primary goal is traceability. Every obligation connects to a risk, a control, the affected system or process, and evidence that proves the control worked. That shared map reduces confusion and makes audits, readiness reviews, and remediation much easier. Strong AI compliance controls are designed into the system, not added after launch. Start with explainability, so the right people can understand how decisions are made. Use evidence-first governance, where important claims are backed by proof. Scale controls by risk, because a low-impact chatbot and a credit decision model should not face the same burden. Finally, make auditability architectural. Versions, approvals, logs, and decisions should be captured across development, deployment, and monitoring. A compliance map usually begins with a regulatory requirement, then translates it into enterprise policy and the AI risk it creates. From there, define the controls that reduce the risk, assign who implements them, identify which systems support them, and decide how often they are reviewed. The value is the chain of connection. For example, a human oversight obligation links to high-impact decision risk, a human review control, approval logs, and finally, an assurance conclusion. An AI compliance matrix turns scattered requirements into an operating system for governance. Each obligation is tied to a specific AI system, risk tier, control objective, owner, evidence source, and status. It also helps separate control types: policy, technical, process, and monitoring, because each is proven differently. Readiness should be visible as well: designed, implemented, operating, and evidenced. Treat the matrix as a living artifact, updated as systems, regulations, risks, and audit findings change. Compliance should scale with risk, not apply one heavy checklist to every AI system. Low-risk tools usually need basic documentation, acceptable use rules, and routine monitoring. Medium-risk systems need stronger evidence, such as data quality checks, model documentation, testing, approvals, and user transparency. High-risk systems require formal governance, human accountability, audit trails, bias and performance testing, and incident procedures. The pattern is proportionality. As impact, autonomy, sensitivity, or regulatory exposure increases, controls become deeper, reviews more frequent, and oversight more senior. Effective AI compliance belongs in the lifecycle, not at the final approval meeting. At intake, define the purpose, screen regulations, and classify risk. During data and model development, manage consent, lineage, documentation, explainability, and bias testing. Before release, use validation gates, approvals, access controls, disclosures, and rollback plans. After deployment, monitor drift, incidents, complaints, overrides, and regulatory change. And when models are retired, preserve the records needed to explain what happened. Evidence-first governance starts with a simple question: what proof will show this control worked? For AI, that proof may include risk assessments, model cards, approvals, bias tests, change logs, monitoring results, and incident records. Each item should map to a control objective or regulation, not just sit in a folder. Strong evidence is complete, current, accurate, attributable, and easy to retrieve. When collection is automated from operational systems, audits become smoother and compliance becomes more continuous. An AI audit trail is the evidence chain behind a system's lifecycle. It records what data changed, which model and prompt version were used, who approved deployment, who accessed the system, and what decisions followed. For high-impact uses, the goal is reconstruction. Inputs, outputs, context, model state, and any human intervention. Because these records may support investigations and regulator reviews, they need timestamps, tamper protection, retention controls, and careful privacy filtering, so accountability does not turn into overcollection. Regulatory control mapping turns fragmented obligations into one practical control system. Rather than creating separate controls for every AI law, privacy rule, security standard, or sector requirement, look for shared themes: transparency, fairness, human oversight, data governance, security, monitoring, and incident response. A single, well-designed control can satisfy multiple obligations, while still noting jurisdiction-specific exceptions. The mapping is not static, so review it regularly as laws, standards, and regulator guidance change. Some signals show that compliance is becoming paperwork instead of operational control. If reviews happen only after launch, evidence is missing. If decisions are not logged, outcomes cannot be explained. If models are not classified, risk is guesswork. Vendor assurances help, but accountability remains with the enterprise. The better pattern is to classify, log, map controls, and store evidence from day one. When compliance questions are ambiguous, a few practical tests help keep decisions consistent. If AI affects a decision, you need an audit trail. If the use case is high risk, a named human must remain accountable. If you cannot produce evidence, you cannot claim assurance. And if regulations do not map to controls, readiness is still unproven. These rules make reviews faster, more consistent, and easier to defend. A readiness checklist turns compliance from a concept into an executable decision. Start by confirming the system's purpose: owner, users, data sources, risk tier, and applicable rules. Then test whether key controls are designed and operating: transparency, human oversight, data governance, security, monitoring, and incident response. The review is defensible only when evidence exists. Any gaps need owners, dates, remediation plans, and clear residual risk acceptance before deployment or audit readiness is claimed. The core lesson is traceability. Connect regulations to controls, controls to evidence, and evidence to accountable owners. Make controls risk-tiered, lifecycle aware, and auditable. Watch for late compliance, missing logs, unclear model classification, and weak evidence repositories. Next, we build toward auditability, assurance, and continuous compliance KPIs.